Today, we're going to talk about 1970s, 80s Speedway at the IMS on Wednesday nights. We appreciate you for tuning in. If you like the content of this show, please like and subscribe so you don't miss another show. And we appreciate you. IMS is considered a short track speedway. And to understand what a speedway rider is on a short track, it's the balance of a surfer, it's the strength of a quality boxer, and it's the courage of a bullfighter. That's what makes a good short track speedway rider. Wednesday night was held at the Orange Show Fairgrounds. That was off the 215 and Orange Show Road. You get off the road and from Orange County, Riverside, hang a right, go all the way to the speedway track. IMS Speedway was produced by Mr. John Ladouceur, and he was just a good promoter. He was hands-on. He was being involved in every aspect of the sport. And he created a good show with Bruce Flanders. And he became friends with legendary promoter Harry Oxley. I would see John and Harry at the Speedway track at the Costa Mesa hanging out, laughing, chatting. They were good friends. And the Wednesday nights at IMS was certainly a great show, produced by none other the promoter, John Ladouceur. One of the things IMS was known for in the 70s, especially by the riders and the fans also, was the deep dirt, the DG that they put on that track. It was a deep cushion around the outside. And that led for some exciting racing, passing on the outside. There was lots of dirt. And a lot of these riders, they gained their expertise in passing and riding the dirt from IMS. It was an amazing track. They must have spent a lot of money on that dirt because there was a deep, deep cushion. Every rider who rode Speedway in that era, they raced Wednesday night at IMS. Why? Because Wednesday night IMS was the place to be. One of IMS's successes in the 70s and the 80s was the legendary voice of the announcer. That was Mr. Bruce Flanders, rest in peace. We sorely miss Bruce and his banter. Bruce just electrified that crowd. He would get the crowd going on Wednesday nights. He'd always have a cup of beer in his hand, and he would just be talking stuff, making stories. You know, Bruce Flanders, he had some great stories to tell. He had a quick wit, and he had that voice. It was that deep voice. And Bruce Flanders was just an amazing part. He made IMS on Wednesday nights legendary. For those of you that remembered on Wednesday nights at the IMS, they had a Harley Davidson night. Harley night at the IMS. And this was no ordinary Harley night. This was the hardcore bikers. I mean, the Hells Angels and the dudes with the vests. They were all gangsters. They would come and fill the stands, and all there would be is bikers there watching the Speedway. It was legendary, and it was scary. You know, as a Speedway rider, when I raced on Harley night, I didn't want to mess around or even talk to those Harley guys. I was afraid they're going to pull out some chains and whip me. The Harley night at the IMS on Wednesday nights was simply amazing. IMS was another one of those tracks that a lot of young early day Speedway riders got their starts in racing. Lots of racers had their first races at the IMS, including Sean McConnell before the days of being called the Mad Dog. Sean was just a knee-high to a grasshopper. He was a cute little fella, and he won some of his first races and had his first trophy girl kiss at the IMS. And later, Sean got that name Mad Dog. But Sean was involved with Speedway at an early age, and Sean McConnell is still involved as a Speedway racer today. Sean was involved in Speedway for so many years now, and he had so much early day success, and I kept thinking like, why did Sean have so much success? And I know the answer. It was the trophy girls. I know Sean McConnell. He liked to kiss those trophy girls, so that motivated him to win main events. The 70s at IMS was truly electric. Every night there seemed to be over 2,500 fans screaming for their favorite Speedway rider. It was an atmosphere that was second to none. And it was a really great experience to be at the IMS, to watch these people get all fired up for their favorite rider. And then, like I mentioned, you had the announcer, Bruce Flander, just going off, getting that crowd charged. It was a sight to behold. And IMS was the track, one of the serious tracks that everyone enjoyed in the 1970s. Another cool thing about IMS is they elevated the track way above, kind of middle way of the crash wall. The crash wall was only this high, so it seemed like people, the riders would fly over the fence, but I'm not sure if that happened a lot. But there was a deep dirt, and that high elevation of the dirt made it exciting because it made a close racetrack for the fans, the spectators, even more close because the riders appeared to be more closer to the spectators. I too have my memories at IMS. I remember winning the D1 handicap main in like 76. I was a low yardage rider, and I just had to give it all I had because these guys were hot, you know. They were good riders at IMS. They were all legendary speedway riders. In order to beat the best, you had to give it your best. And I remember these experiences at the IMS, and it was truly gratifying to finish the race knowing you beat these guys because they were so hard to beat, and you had to just give it everything you had. And the IMS truly was a memorable experience for me as well. We always remember the promoter, John Ladouceur, as one of the great promoters in Speedway, in early days Speedway history. And he was hands-on. He made the Speedway racing exciting. He made the races so everyone enjoyed them, and that was his job, and he did a good job at that. So thank you, John, for all the memories you gave us and promotion, your great promotion at the IMS. Speedway in the 70s just rocked. It was magical. It was like one of those experiences that you just had to be there. And some of the younger riders of today, they just don't understand what it was like to be back at that day. And it was just an amazing experience. And probably the best way to explain it is it's difficult to explain it. You just had to be there. 1976 was a memorable year. They had the National Speedway League. They had the San Bernardino Sizzlers, sponsored by the Sizzler Steakhouse. And it was a great experience for all the riders. They had a young team, but a solid team. And they finished like 4th place out of 5 places in the National Speedway League. But like I say, they had a young team. They had a brand new rider in Dennis Sigalos. They had a brand new rider in Brad Oxley. They had a young Ron Preston. And they had a few good riders. They had Dean Foreman, they had Mark Cherry, and they had Lightning Larry Shaw, and they had the Animal, Jim Fishbeck, and maybe a few others that I missed. But the Sizzlers was an amazing place to race Speedway. The team was good. They had good riders, and I think they were a little bit young, probably, like I mentioned, the youngest team of Speedway, so they had a slight disadvantage. But it gave a lot of these young riders a chance to develop, to grow. And talking to Dennis Sigalos about it, he had mentioned that one time he crashed at IMS and the splinter on the crash wall went into his leathers and went right almost to piercing his body. Big old splinter. He had told me that from racing on the Sizzlers team. But these young guns had this experience, and it was a great experience for all these young guys to go over to Europe and race. And this was the start of a lot of young Speedway riders' careers at the IMS. IMS continued its legendary run into the 80s. You had all these great riders still riding. You had Michael Bass, Alan Christian. You had John Cook back from Europe. You had a list of all these superstars racing at the IMS. It made for Speedway truly exciting, hardcore, and challenging to win. Why? Because you have this huge list of super talented Speedway riders. I'm not sure exactly the date that IMS closed. I believe it was in the 1980s. And the IMS was resurrected again in the 2000s by the Mad Dog, Sean McConnell, and Jason Bonsignor. They went ahead and tried to originate the IMS to the exact dimensions that it was in the 70s and 80s. And they did a fantastic job. You know, they put a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money into developing the IMS to try to make a replica of the original. However, things changed in the 2000s. I talked to Jason about that, and I asked him, what was the reason that the IMS in the 2000s didn't succeed like the IMS in the 70s and 80s?
You tried to get it back to the original shape of the track and everything. What was the difference between the IMS in the 1970s and the IMS, let's say, in the 2000s? Was it the population change? There was more minorities, or what was the difference? Because we all went to IMS in the 70s and it was rocking. So what do you think was the difference?
Just about 2,500 people a night sitting in the bleachers. Was it the moment in time where the drinking age was, younger and people were more inclined to party and weren't so worried about driving home with a couple of beers, after the races? Was it that there was less entertainment to compete against? Nowadays kids have phones and video games and all these different sports that they're into, and my father makes a good point. He talks about how back then in the 60s and 70s, more hard-nosed kids were being brought up.
There you go. IMS was an amazing track. We all had a good time there, and we appreciate you for hanging out, talking about the IMS Speedway on Wednesday nights. It was the place to be in the middle of the week, and it drew a pretty good crowd as well in the 70s and 80s. But thanks once again for hanging out with us today, talking about Speedway, talking about the early days and the IMS. It was a great magical experience for all. Thank you so much. Please like the show, subscribe if you haven't subscribed so you don't miss another show. And we appreciate you. And we're going to see you, of course, we're going to see you next time. Thank you.